When we decided to start looking at SQL Connection, the main reason was because we wanted our customers to have the opportunity to have their data on SQL Server. We've been requested for that over and over, and when we looked at SQL Connection, we saw that there was such a broad range of functionality built into SQL Connection that it was going to enable us to do what our customers needed us to do.
Our main objective in using the SQL connectivity series from Synergex was to export our ISAM data to a SQL-based data warehouse.
Originally, we needed to be able to get data out of our legacy SQL Server system into the Synergy ISAM files. Since the original implementation, which was just primarily used for overnight data conversion, we've since moved to being able to pull out information on the fly. In particular applications where we need to keep that data up to date with the legacy system. SQL Connection enabled us, supplied us with that mechanism.
The objective was just to be able to access a large ERP database. ERP databases are incredibly huge, they're very, very complex, and depending on the system, some of your lower end systems might run on SQL Server. The bigger you go, you're almost guaranteed you're going to be in the world of Oracle, because that's the general rule for your really large ERP databases. And ERP databases per se, ERP systems are incredibly good for keeping a tremendous amount of data and collecting it. But they very rarely do a good job of providing the information you need to run the company. They don't have the logic to be able to do that, and that's where the SQL Connection is just so great, because where the ERP system fails in its software because it doesn't know how to present the data you want in the information, I can create my own applications, jump right in and dig into the Oracle database and create the business logic that I know I want to get the information I want. That this is something our ERP system simply could not provide. It's just a great tool to be able to do that.
We needed to transform TCM, WorkWise TCM, into a true relational database product and essentially move from the ISAM platform to a relational database. We chose SQL 2005. SQL Connection really is the shortest path for any Synergy application to get there.
SQL Connection gave us a very simple extension to our application that allowed us to send any data we wanted to a SQL database. And then from that point, we were able to use standard SQL tools, ETL, to use the Synergy data that was now in a SQL database for other reporting tools.
SQL Connection is going to enable our application at United Natural Foods to, from our VMS systems, update and directly use our SQL databases, which we use for historical purposes. And we're also going to be using our SQL databases for real-time integration with third-party applications which only allow us to use ODBC drivers. SQL Server is the ideal tool for us to be able to do that, and SQL Connection is the ideal Synergy tool for us to be able to talk to SQL Server from VMS.
Tech analysts, when we work with other customers, they're constantly asking us for things such as the ability to have their data on SQL Server, and when we saw the functionality built into SQL Connection, we knew that that was the answer for us to get those requests taken care of. SQL Connection has a wide range of functionality that has allowed us to not only put our data in SQL Server, but to be able to manipulate it very, very well using the functionality built into SQL Connection.
The implementation effort was relatively straightforward. It was a case of reading the manual and doing a simple test program on a simple file and then expanding on from that.
Implementing SQL Connection is very straightforward. The documentation is really quite good. And if you have any familiarity with relational databases, it's easy to make the mapping changes into the native calls for SQL Connection. We found it to be very straightforward. As I said before, we had a couple of other attempts using traditional ODBC methods, trying to use another layer of code. This is far simpler, and it's allowed us to really focus on the core of the application rather than all the mechanics behind it.
The implementation effort for United Natural so far with SQL Connection has been fairly minimal. Myself and a couple of other developers have been working with SQL Connection, but we've actually been able to accomplish a lot of work in that direction in a very short period of time. Again, it's a very simple installation on our VMS systems. And very easy to use with SQL Server.
The implementation effort on SQL Connection is phenomenally easy. It took us very, very little time to get SQL Connection up and going.
Well, before SQL Connection, I couldn't have an application, period, because our days of working with ISAM files, index sequential reads, and things like that are years past. It's been years since we've worked with those kind of databases. You get in your large database without the SQL connection. The only thing I had prior to that was our legacy system, which did use Synergex type ISAM files, and that application would have died there had it not been for the release of the SQL Connection to be able to connect to Oracle databases.
United Natural Foods is now able to, from our VMS systems, dynamically update SQL Server with real-time transactional data, which is something that we've not been able to do in the past. Previously, we've gone with the method of overnight transactional updates into the databases, which leaves us with data that's roughly 24 hours old. That was unacceptable for some of our more recent applications, so we're now in a place with SQL Connection where we can do real-time transactional processing.
We're able to quickly respond to our business's reporting needs. It's really changed the way they're able to look at the data that's coming out of our application. It used to take us weeks and weeks to develop new reports, and now the business is able to look at their data any way they want to, and because of that, they're able to respond much faster to the changing business environment.
Previously, the application was used for mainly overnight data conversion, but now we actually use it for extracting information on the fly from our legacy system across to the new system.
In the past, our application had no way to communicate with SQL Server. Now our application is able to read and write directly from SQL Server, which is giving our customers the ability to do reporting and other third-party application integration much easier than in the past.
United Natural Foods has been implementing a pick-to-light system in one of our warehouses. So the implications of using SQL Connection now allow us to do a couple of main things, which is to provide data to that pick-to-light system, which is a third-party application, and also to be able to get back data from our WorldShip application about UPS shipments and be able to get that back into our business system from SQL Server and provide shipping confirmations and tracking information to our customers much earlier in the process.
Oh, I would recommend it wholeheartedly because it makes such a transparency in getting to the data. We've had licensing on our system where we could use tools provided by our ERP system to go through their own database drivers and produce some business logic. But the overhead and the problems of dealing with that just simply are not as productive as dealing with the Synergy and the SQL Connection. Is just such a better way to go.
I'd tell other Synergy DE customers that the SQL Connection software is easy to use and a reliable piece of software.
I would tell other customers that it's been very easy for us to implement SQL Connection. It's a very simple install, And to anybody who has any familiarity with SQL Server, it's a very natural product to use.
It's efficient, it does what I want it to do, and it's very portable.
What I would tell other developers is if your customers have a desire to have their data on SQL Server or on Oracle, really look at SQL Connection. It is a very, very full-featured functionality built into Synergy.
I think my advice to other customers who are trying to implement a relational database model is don't be afraid. Use SQL Connection. Try it right out of the box. The shortest path between 2 points is a straight line, and SQL Connection definitely is that straight line.